community, supporting the implementation of integrated green digital services, and capacity building, which fits with today's session, of cities to create their urban digital twins for better informed decision. Andrea also works on the implementation of living in EU movements, education, and capacity building. And so she will briefly introduce you first on the view of the Commission. Andrea, the floor is yours. I can't yet hear you. Yeah, there we go. We can see your slides, yes. Andrea? Yes, we do not yet hear you. There we go.
Okay. So I go back.
Yes, now it works.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned that we would like to look at digital twins in a more overarching, let's say, integrated manner, in a holistic picture, and I think that's very it's a very great approach. And this is also how we're looking at all kinds of digital twins. As you can appreciate, we've also seen quite a few of different kinds, different types, different domains, and so on. But I think what we're trying to do, at least at the Commission level, is to kind of put all these twins into some kind of an ecosystem, in order to be able to, on the one hand, benefit from each other, learn from each other, and on the other hand, develop the necessary interoperability between the different components, so that new twins could be built on them, so that twins could communicate with one another. It was it's all based on some policy objectives of the Commission. On the one hand, as you know, the Commission is aiming to become fit for the making Europe fit for the digital age through a number of legislative measures and so on, and policies. But at the same time, Commission is helping to make Europe the first climate neutral continent, and there's also quite a number of initiatives and policy actions in this respect. Now, we see that smart cities are sort of at the convergence of these two policies, and indeed, digital twins could be a very important tool to make this happen.
Yeah.
If I move to the next slide, the areas we focus on is to create the necessary underlying digital infrastructure, both in terms of having access to the right data sets. So these are the data spaces.
Andrea, we cannot see the next slide. We see your PowerPoint Outlook. Yeah, no, yeah. Now we see slide 3. That's fine. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So we're focusing on 3 elements to help cities develop or create their underlying infrastructure for twins. On the one hand, the data layer, and for that we're helping cities create a data exchange ecosystem, a data space. We're helping cities to implement interoperable data platforms on which they can then build applications, such as, for example, local digital twins. I hope the slides are moving now. As you mentioned, all our work is on the one hand governed by the policy objectives of the Commission, but on the other hand by a group of organizations representing cities who have put forward a declaration that's now been signed by almost 100 cities across the EU, creating a community around how to transform cities and communities in the EU digitally. It puts forward some commitments, some principles on how to ensure interoperable digital solutions, especially interoperable data platforms and other urban solutions, and how to put in place all kinds of digital solutions that respect citizens' digital rights. When we talk about digital twins, indeed, we see that as a progression in terms of smart city evolution. So those cities that will have the necessary data platforms and will be able to benefit from the data space to get access to all kinds of data that they may need to manage their city, we will see the emergence of digital twins. These will be solutions or technologies that will enable the city to make short-term decisions, operational, quick, real-time decisions to manage the traffic or avoid pollution in certain zones, but also to help them create more strategic decisions, long-term planning, scenario planning, and actually engage with citizens for the future of their cities. So we see a great range of different kind of applications, oftentimes in one or the other domain, but we think that the real value of the digital twin will come from bringing together different kinds of domain data and make those not only visually visual through dashboards, but also to help in quick decision making and eventually predictions and also assessing past policy measures. So we've seen a few around Europe, and just to let
we still see slide 3.
Oh.
Yeah, now we're 5. Super.
Sorry about that. There's a little time lag. So we will talk about quite some twins in Europe, but just to mention a few around Helsinki, around Amsterdam, Antwerp, or Rotterdam, but also Munich more recently. We're seeing Munich, Hamburg, and Leipzig, as well as Vienna, Bologna, Cambridge, and so on, but also some European projects that you probably know about, especially Duet and Lead. Let me try to move to the last slide then, which is to explain what will be the possibilities to benefit from potential European funding to start implementing such digital twins. The idea is that we'll have some limited but still public funding through mostly the Digital Europe program to actually create a so-called toolbox for digital twins. It will be it will make available reusable tools for cities in the future to implement some generic capabilities for their digital twins. But at the same time, we'll also ensure through other funding schemes to create 5G communities and help cities implement those platforms if they don't have them that will allow them the management of all kinds of data flows, and also help with some funding to create this data space, a secure environment where data can be exchanged between stakeholders under certain conditions. So we're looking forward to the creation of this EU local digital twin toolbox that's by its nature will be putting forward interoperable standard-based solutions, which can then serve as the basis for future implementation. At the moment, this future implementation will have to be complemented by other funds such as the RRF, the RDF, or other national or local funds. So this is where we are. And of course, as mentioned, we're directly in touch with the cities through the Living in EU community as well as supporters. So please feel free to join the community where also some iconic projects such as the ones on digital twins are discussed. Thank you. And I'm here to answer potential questions.
Thank you. I suggest we keep the questions for after our 2 other speakers, but I think it was already really interesting to see what the EU is doing for the different cities, and especially the aspect also on interoperability, which is, I think, a really valid one. I'm going to present you first our Indian speaker. So we have Sumit with us. Sumit is the founder and the chairman of Gaia. And Gaia is an Indian-based company. It's actually an innovative SaaS platform for enterprise processes and automation that they offer. Sumit has a very interesting background. He's a global thought leader and a CXO in the field of asset performance management, artificial intelligence, smart cities, telecom, and information analytics. His focus has been on technology-based transformation of companies, and he's a typical futurist and entrepreneur at heart, creating digital and physical solutions involving artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, and mobile technologies. He's a visiting faculty at Carnegie Mellon University in the US, and he's a program director of the Swachh Bharat mission and IT expert for several smart cities. He's bringing the view from India and from Singapore to share with us what the current status is there. Sumit, the floor is yours. We can't hear you, Sumit. Not yet. Microphone should be on your left. Not yet. Under the video button is a microphone. Yeah, you're muted. Can you try now? We still cannot hear you. Nope. Nope. Not yet. Ariadne, can you maybe check whether he's muted in the tool?
Yes, he isn't. Sumit, you're not muted. That's interesting.
If not, we move to Anna first. Ariadne, can you guide Sumit? And then Anna, if you're okay, then we move to you first. I'll introduce you first so the people know who you are.
Sure. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we hear you. So Anna holds a PhD in urban planning and architecture, brings a very interesting view from that part. She's an AI expert in the fields of smart cities, real estate, energy, infrastructure, and mobility. Anna worked in various EU countries and institutes, among others in the ETH, so the institute in Switzerland, in the energy conversion group. She was an elected member of the European Advisory Group on Energy and currently works also as the COO of SwissAl and as a member of the board of the Davos Digital Forum. She will be presenting the current approach to digital twins in SwissAl, following extensive development work at ETH under the Interpol umbrella. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lien. First of all, hello, everybody. Let's see if my screen is being shared with you. Do you see my presentation? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we do.
Okay, fantastic. So I'd like to talk to you about how one can empower the optimized decision-making for sustainable and future-ready city. There is some, I would like to ask if you could switch off your microphones because there is a double sound. So we will first of all have a look at the city's digitalization, the current process and the one proposed within the next generation digital twin, look at a few case studies and the application possibilities. The current digitalization in the city planning and management, in energy, mobility, and urban systems is typically not integrated. Individual solutions are done for subcomponents of the individual systems, and thus one comes with not fully optimal city infrastructure with a limited scalability potential. Secondly, similarly, for the policy planning in these sectors, the policymakers do not have a full visibility into the decision consequences, and therefore there is some limitation in how optimal the planning and the policy solution can be. That leads to challenges in infrastructure financing, and financing projects expect high risk premiums, as well as there is often a mismatch between the financial institutions' expectations of returns and the projects themselves, the returns offered by the projects. Now, how is our approach different? Within our holistic system, we look at synergies between the different subsystems of the city, and we integrate the solutions. We integrate the scales, we integrate the levels of the systems. That allows for optimization of the complete solution. We optimize then against different KPIs depending on the interest of the decision maker. And we can look at not just financial, social aspects, technological aspects, but also at environmental measures and financial. For the financial, we optimize the business for the individual business plan, as well as we look at the sensitivity of the risks. That allows to better manage the risks, and the optimized solutions achieve higher return rates, attracting financing and facilitating it. After this introduction, I would like to talk to you about our digital twin. This is possible thanks to our holistic approach. We utilize very high computational power and multiple different models throughout aspects of society. Our system is truly holistic, combining hundreds of levels of models. We integrate that in between the levels, and that allows us to look at different scales of the system, look at them from different perspectives of the stakeholders, as well as look at different subject matters within the system, but keeping the holistic view. Thanks to the fact that we don't follow individual people, we are fully anonymous in our processes. We still, though, look at the behavior of individual people. We call these agents. Individual cars, individual also components of the system act as agents, which allow us to capture the complexity of the real world and interaction in between the components of the system. With our big data and artificial analysis, we also do what Mrs. Halmos from the Commission mentioned as the target for these systems. We actually forecast. We forecast different futures and their impact of the potential future scenario onto the system of interest. And then we optimize. Under different scenarios, under different KPIs, we can achieve the most optimal solution possible to facilitate finance and lower the risk. The real world is reflected by adding different reality levels. Here you see how we combine within one system these different levels. So first of all, we capture the functioning of physical laws-based machinery throughout the systems of the city. This is linked with policies, existing policies, as well as policies which could potentially be in place, both on international, national, and local level, and how then the physical laws of machinery would change. These are all interlinked. Another level is the economics, with the macroeconomics, which we look at their impact on the local economics. Then we have something which typically is called the digital twin, the city and surrounding environment digital twin. On top of that, we include dynamic movement and behavior of agents, so of individual people, as well as flows of pollution, resource of solar, wind resource in particular, as well as the weather and the weather impacts on the people's behavior, on technology behavior, etc. Now, this approach is also possible due to the fact that we include complex emergent phenomena. We don't only look at the past, but we see how the future could develop once certain part of this combined reality changes. How would people, how would these individual agents behave in a changed environment? Changed economic environment, changed regulatory environment. For example, here you see on the left-hand side on the image, one can imagine a scenario in which we have a certain electric vehicle rollout in combination with a local zoning transition and change. And we can see then the propagation of that change onto individual behavior, as well as necessity of changing the existing transport infrastructure. Our future forecasting capability, predictive capability, is a combined scenario that one can imagine across different sectors. We can imagine a scenario in which macroeconomic change occurs. People in certain area of their life change the behavior. We have a longer-term climate difference. We have a shorter-term technological rollout of new technology. Then there is supply and demand fluctuations in a given market that we analyze, as well as there are some policy changes on different levels of policy. This all has an impact on the system that we are looking at, and we can quantify these changes, propagation onto our system to inform the decision-making for planning as well as financing of a project. As well as we can look at different risk scenarios to calibrate the project itself. Here you see that we not only include the financial assessment of the project and infrastructure and planning of different levels of the city, but we can also look at environmental and quality of life impact. And once it is included in our KPIs, we can optimize against it or for it to maximize these positive effects. Further, we also look at different levels of policy, and we can help these policy levels to be optimal for a given outcome. As well as we look at prospective measures. We can look at not just 1 second, that is also in our system, but also in 30 years' time, how the system will behave after a potential policy transition. These all elements provide us boundary condition to assess our specific set of solutions for the city. Once we know what kind of system we want to look at and find the most optimal, we include in our system the boundary conditions, and the system comes with thousands of solutions. These thousands of solutions then can be co-optimized across different systems. Further, they can be analyzed against potential risks of the future scenarios to find the most resilient of the solutions, and then further optimize it with, for example, a better business model. And finally, we provide the reporting, technical, financial, environmental reporting for the decision-making. How do we do this? Well, typically in the risk management approach, for example, you have these various potential future changes which might occur. For example, change in a macroeconomic leading to a lower amount of jobs and migration from the city or into the city. In a classical way of application, one looks at these different risks separately and assess them individually, which often leads to overestimation of the risk for a project, and that leads the financial institutions to expect a higher premium. Within our integrated approach, we look at it as one integrated scenario where the agents react within the system and the technical systems, etc., of the city react to that future in an integrated manner, thus much better predicting the impacts. This is an element of finance facilitation, but this finance facilitation is started earlier, where we actually identify the attractive investment projects across different components of the city. Then we optimize the project to make it more profitable. And finally, we de-risk and facilitate the due diligence and financing of the project with different elements of analysis and reporting. To the case studies, which will make it a little more tangible. For example, we looked at the city of St. Gallen, where the public facilities, the city wanted to have the energy bill of public facilities lowered, as well as increased self-sufficiency of these facilities, effectively more renewable energy. So we have looked at different resources availability, technical performance of the system. The system automatically included this information on the different business aspects, financing aspects, including land rental costs, machinery costs, but also connection routing, increased routing, increased the in between different components of the system, to come up with more than 1,000 possible configurations. So each of these analyses, which is a typical analysis which is done 1 or 2 times, has been done 1,000 times by the system. This, each of these points is a solution. And in the next slide, you can see this is one of the solutions. One of the solutions within the city of St. Gallen, where the system chose the most profitable composition of the location of the facilities and the provision of renewables and the routing between the two. And it came up with an IRR, we set a limit of 5% minimum to provide 30% of the renewable energy to these chosen facilities. Some of them haven't been chosen by the system because of the their needs being too low for it to be profitable. Another example is a bus rollout optimization, which we have performed for the city of Aarau in Switzerland, where we looked at all different aspects again of the system. So not only typical aspects that normally are looked at, bus lines and vehicle types, but also the movement of the people. As we are modeling the movement of the people, we knew how heavy different buses are throughout the day. And with the weather, moreover, we knew how big are the cooling and heating needs throughout the day of these buses. We have also included within the system the topography and the recuperation, as well as all the costs and financial aspects. As a result of our analysis, we knew exactly at which point what energy demand there is, what is the state of charge of the battery. We model also the full battery lifetime. So we knew how to, where to localize the chargers and how should be the type of dischargers, as well as what should be the type of the vehicles for this given network. And talking of the different perspectives, we also analyzed grid upgrade needs because of the big peak necessity for charging and impact on the grid. And then one can reiterate and have the co-optimization of the two systems again. Another application to show you the holistic nature of the system is the housing, which we analyzed for the Lausanne agglomeration. Here you see the future scenarios for the migration, and we assessed where are the needs for which type and size and quality of the dwelling, depending on the migration scenario. For that, we have the whole policy of where can one actually build how big volumes within the city, as well as within the whole agglomeration, in fact, as well as modeling of the hedonics. So what kind of needs different target groups have to choose their dwellings. And this can facilitate the urban planners and investors' processes to lower the vacancy, but also help the city to better plan for the future infrastructure needs to cater to these new migrant groups. Another example for decarbonization of building stock, we helped the city of St. Gallen through a successful referendum here in Switzerland, where they needed 64 million francs to fund a new district heating system. We have, to do that, we identified the least cost path for the district heat network, but also we studied the likelihood of the connection of the individual buildings, as well as we limited the need for opening effectively the routes which were recently refurbished, so that the costs of overall system is lowered. Our application of the system led to 1/3 improved profitability, faster occurrence of IRRs, and a quarter higher return on investment for the investor. And here the final recent project that we are just starting with City of Sarajevo, where we will be applying all the different levels of our systems. I just showed you a few, but there is many more that we've been doing for the long-term master planning of the city. How can we apply these digital twin for the cities? First, we can SwissAl can operate the digital twin of a city. This is a basic model. But then also we can provide a license to the city to operate its own user interface of these different systems. Thirdly, we can provide a digital twin to the city so that there is a more data-based exchange with the models, as well as there can be a public-private partnership model, which is more of a project-specific, for example, energy provision to a part of the city demand. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to discuss with you further throughout the matchmarking sessions, answer questions, and talk to you about.
Thank you, Anna. It was really interesting. I think that was a good example of what we meant with our title. And I think that Andrea will also have good ideas from this. Sumit, I think by now, so the audience can add the questions in the chat window. We will tackle them after we've listened to Sumit. Sumit, let's test now whether we can hear you. Now you are muted. Super, there you are.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
Oh, hold on. Is my presentation visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. It was a wonderful presentation. I think it sort of sets the stage for what I was going to talk about. I'm glad you went before, and so the title was "Digital Twins Are Dead" and "Long Live Digital Twins." And I think the purpose with which the organizers had kept that was the challenges that were faced in the past to create these models. The concept of digital twins obviously came from the industrial modeling that was there in machines and factories and healthcare and in single unit digital shadows, as I would call it, and trying to expand that into the concept of cities. And so we work in the space of smart cities. I'll give a one. I'm in Mumbai in India. I'll just give a little bit of introduction to the company, one slide and two, and then we'll go over to the thing. So we work in this concept of intersection between business, society, and government, performance monitoring of cities, of their functions. We help participatory governance and ensure that the citizens are being heard and are being brought. The data is being brought and presented to the city, and we work to ensure that the data is being captured. I think where we come from in India, there's a lot of lack of infrastructure in the first place. So a lot of focus of the smart cities projects and the focus of governments over here is to build the infrastructure in the first place. And as part of building the infrastructure, you need to ensure that the data is being collected properly. I think that's where we come in. We as a company have helped multiple projects with their city program management of projects which are both in the infrastructure space as well as in the digital ICT space, which is information and communication technologies. We do the architecture design, but the purpose with which we do it is to ensure that we are creating the data that is required for ultimate use in a digital twin concept later on. We also participated to some extent in the Urban Data Exchange a project which was launched by the mission and by the government, where all the cities, I think Andrea talked about it, all the cities are giving their data into one data hub. And so it started the process of creating the past data, as you would call it, that is required by the cities is there. But very frankly, where in India today, we don't see too many implementations of a full-blown digital twin, partly because past data is not available, also because the models, there aren't enough people studying this as an architectural or as a concept. Multiple large cities have said they want to do it. The mission has said that they want to do it, but we have not reached that point yet of sophistication that Anna talked about. But I will talk a little bit about some of the examples from Urbanetic, which is a company based in Singapore, and I have the founder and CEO is also in the audience. I met SwissAl in a conference in Malaysia, and we started interacting on what they do. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So why did it fail? So let me just go into the concept. Is the cities are complex systems, right? It's a confluence of too many decision makers, too many agents who can derail a model, right? In the industrial 4.0, or when we looked at hospitals, when we looked at factories, there were a finite number of agent decision makers that you could fork your model from. But when you look at a city, when you look at citizens, when you look at governments, when you look at politics on top of it, and none of these models work, because when politics gets involved, a lot of these models break down because we don't know what people are going to do. Too many constituents who are independent decision makers. See, the problem with models is that we model a decision maker and their behavior in an environment that we are able to model. We are able to describe and have the mental models. But when there are too many of these who can behave rationally or irrationally based on things that we have not been able to do, and a lot of non-measurable quality of life concepts are also there in the model, it becomes difficult, and the decisions that people are taking takes a long time to mature. So as Anna was talking about, a 30-year time window for certain things to really start giving true return on investment. This feedback modeling is where a lot of the earlier implementations have failed, and we may not find this large policy intervention today, but nudge economics as was there. Where can we find the leverage points, even in with the limited set of data that we have got, with the limited models that we've got? Can we create a largish systems thinking model for a city? Can we move from linear thinking and move into systems thinking in loops, where these loops are things that introduce delays and introduce impacts of one decision over other, and create a set of linked models? And I think both Andrea and Anna talked about the concept of linking models together, and I believe that's the only way to do it. There is no way in which one system will be able to model all of these different subsystems, because each one of them is a very complex system. Each subsystem is very, very dense. One is very dense interconnections in our system. That's real life, right? High level of uncertainty in each fork. And these uncertainties, when you model one on top of the other, creates a complex set of uncertainties, which Anna talked about, increases the premium for financing, right? And this uncertainty is what needs to be modeled into the thing. And the tool, as was talked about before, should be able to capture this uncertainty and the rapid rate of change, things that humans do to change the way they are behaving because of a variety of factors, some modeled, some not modeled. I think this non-quantifiable and critical factors are also things that are there in real life, right? So if you take a look at traditional management science, is today grossly inadequate to model this reality. But can we do it in subsystems? Can we do it adequately well in subsystems? I think that is what we need to look at. Events, if you take a look at the larger systems thinking approach to digital twins and cities, if you take a look at how we are observing events and we look at the patterns of behavior, I think most cities are today in the mode of capturing the data from these events and displaying the outcome, and also trying to figuring out the patterns of this behavior. I think that's what we would call a digital shadow of reality. It's not really a twin where one is impacting the other, because decisions taken in the digital domain will go back and impact reality as well. And the underlying systemic structure of this feedback model, the mental model that we need to create, is going to be the one that is going to transform. And what is missing in digital twins so far, in a lot of the work and the published research that has been gone on, that in real world we are looking at indicators, we are looking at KPIs that we use to understand the world, right? And then there are decisions and actions that affect the real world. So there are a lot of automated processes. What is missing is the concept of these reflective processes, where we have a mental model of the real world, and we take strategies and decisions, and none of these can be taken in isolation. And human beings are able to take multiple things into account without being able to articulate why they are doing it, are able to take decisions to impact the real world. And I think our ability to capture this, why a particular strategy was taken, why these decisions, and model it into an AI engine, model it into a decision framework, is where we need to focus a lot on today and build it over time. I don't think there is a end point of digital twins. It is a starting point. I think we are in the preliminary stages of understanding how cities work, how larger complex ecosystems work. And we are then going to be able to model multiple conflicting as well as collaborating agents working towards an outcome. And I think in the city level, we need to look at absolutely conflicting opinions as well, and people deliberately trying to ensure that the policy is not successful. I think that's where there is a concept which we need to start thinking about and modeling of how we handle contrarian behavior in the models. Mostly we think rationally. We are all engineers, we are all scientists who are modeling rational behavior, and sometimes due to factors that we don't understand, there are contrarian behaviors in real world, and modeling these contrarian behaviors are going to differentiate whether we are able to model what is going to happen. And I want to introduce one little concept and sort of talk about holons and holarchies and smart cities. As you know that holon is a unit which is complete in itself, and a network of these holons create the holarchy, and it need not be a hierarchy, it's a network. And this network of concepts need to be stitched together, and we need to model each area, water supply, energy usage, or traffic. Each one of them needs to be complete in itself, and the model needs to be holistic, and we need to understand it in gory details, and then find linkages with other models that people are working on and create the holarchy of I think both the presentations before talked about the concept. When we take a look at a single holon, I mean, we are looking and modeling a single concept, the digital shadow on a single sheet. And when we have bidirectional and loops around this whole thing, we create the concept that we were talking about, where the digital model is actually going and impacting physical world with delays which are also modeled in, and the concepts and the impact of these feedback loops both on the physical world as well as the assumptions. The assumptions also change as we see the real world getting in the way, and these assumptions are modeled into the system. And I think we need to create this holarchy of digital models interacting with each other, representing various aspects of it, and led by experts in their own area, because we are really talking about modeling human decision making in each domain, which is quite different in each area. And we need to introduce, as we talked about, the contrarian thinker in there, who will ensure that when somebody comes up with a policy, that there is somebody who's also not agreeing to that policy and will do things which are irrational for that concept. And I'll take you with a couple of examples of from Urbanetics that we got discussing with Shaibal, and they created a tool almost in the last 7 to 8 years. I think they've been operating, creating digital twins for cities. I mean, it's a tool very similar to what was talked about by Anna. I think it's meant for city administrators and regional development authorities. It is also meant for architects and urban planners who can take a look at a subset of the city to look at the impact of what they are doing and how they are doing it in the neighborhood, in the locality. And finally, where they found most success is to look at subsystems within the city, real estate developers, real estate investors, who look at the impact of what they are doing in the neighborhood. And that is where we are able to spend most time, because doing something at a city level requires a lot of time and effort and money, which the ROI of that has been difficult to prove in most instances. That I'll give an example of just contrarian to what Anna talked about. If there was a project in which EV buses were being introduced, and it cost me $1 million to do a project to figure out where chargers are, they will say put 10 EV more buses, and we don't need to understand where the chargers are going to be kept. So we will have decisions to that effect, that we need to be easy on how much analysis we do and what scale we do this analysis to do this. And the tool that they came up with is to create this performance visibility, to look at the efficiencies, to create this access and competitiveness. It is a tool which allows people to bring in understanding buildings, understanding transportation, understanding the whole ecosystem, and create it on the web make sure that everybody understands what the consequences are. And this fabric, as they call it, it comes with advanced IoT software so that you can actually connect it directly with devices in the buildings, in the neighborhood, in traffic lights, wherever you would want to commit, and create the 3D model and the simulation that is required for ensuring that the city is getting what it is asked for. And multiple projects have been done. I'm going to stick to the ones on this part of town. You all are all quite familiar with what is happening in Europe and the city of Melbourne, Hanoi. There's a way in which this has been done. It's a geospatial analysis tool with data and with the analytics that was being talked about. I think where this can be enhanced and where is to bring in the optimization that needs to happen on top of the concepts that in the last few layers of her software. I think that's where the next step is for this tool, is to get into the optimization, to understand what needs to get done. I think their mission is to model the built environment and also to understand how do you impact financing of these impactful ESG outcomes, and to create a SaaS platform really that will empower the cities to do it easily and fast. I think that's where the trick is if it takes too much time and too much effort, most decisions will get taken without doing this analysis. I think that's where we need to focus on.
Sumit, can we wrap up?
Yeah, this is the last slide, so we'll be yeah. And I think that's the tool allows for the city to develop this grammar, the network of sources from which it is going to come from, instrument the city, bring all the data in, and create that platform that is required for the city to get to the concept of modeling the city, as well as to look at the visualization that is there. It also allows us to expand the model. We talked about the tool allows us to move to other areas, and each domain can be modeled inside the tool. I think that's the concept of this. We need to look at this digital twin in the same way. We need to bring in experts who are modeling each domain independently and make it complete like a holon, and then create the linkages between the models and model the delays that are there. And distributed intelligence and purpose-built model is what we need to focus on in the future. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. We have Marta that has one question for Anna. Marta, we'll take your question first. And then Pasquale also has a question. If we don't manage to answer all the questions, then I will put an email address in the chat window, and then you can ask your questions later on, and I will make sure they're distributed to the relevant speakers. Anna, Marta asked a question on the ability of the model to optimize the location of electric vehicle charging stations. So electric cars, electric buses, to link between mobility optimization and smart cities, but I think that's already fine. But maybe, can you see the question, Anna?
Yes, I see. Can you see my screen, the black screen right here?
Yes, we can see the black screen.
So I would like to play you a short movie. This is, we basically are optimizing across these systems. These are different systems. So the optimization is possible. We look at both mobility transformation as well as energy transformation simultaneously. And that allows us to, maybe I switch off the music. That allows us to actually see both of the systems real time in one framework. And this is the only way we can co-optimize these two systems. It's actually a good example for the co-optimization. We actually model the behavior here of these individual cars based on local behavior, because we calibrate against the smart meters data, which is often the cities have, but they don't exactly know how to use this. Here it is very useful for us to achieve better financial results for this chargers. And this is the way, this is actually in Japan. We did that with a partner of ours. We work closely with our partners to understand and create actionable options. This is Hitachi, our partner in Japan, where they wanted to see the not just the people movement and electrification transitions, but also changes in agriculture, which is a different level, again, of digital twin, how the agriculture will be also transformed. So that shows an example I thought to show as an answer to Marta's question.
Yeah, Anna, I think it would be good if you add, and Sumit potentially as well, if you add your email to the chat window so people can get in touch with you afterwards if you have questions or want to be informed about what you can do for them. Angelo, I think Angelo, you had a question as well, but I don't see your question. So maybe there was one more, the question about robotics, but I need to go up there. Pasquale, you had a question on, do you think we will create robots to facilitate human life in cities? I think that's a very futuristic question, Pasquale. If you allow me, as we have 1 minute left, I think that's a futuristic philosophic question. I'm going to wrap up. We have had a lot of information and I didn't want to interrupt the presentations, but I make sure that if, I will drop my email address also in the chat window. If there are any questions left after this session, and you cannot reach Sumit, Andrea, or Anna, please get in touch with me. We will probably follow up a bit later also on LinkedIn and on Twitter, so you will be able to engage with us. I think it was a wonderful session. It was a bit packed, but it was a wonderful session with great examples from all over the world, from both of you, Sumit and Anna. Also, Andrea, very interesting to talk about this interoperability. And also what I thought was really interesting is that the Commission is spending a lot of time on this capacity building, because I see that indeed as a kind of a challenge. If I see the way cities work, and Anna-Mi had some experience in that as well. So really looking forward to that. And I think we should build the next session on this to follow up and dive a bit more into the details. So if people are interested in that, please leave a message and then we'll get back to you on